Hello everyone, this is part 7 on how to make a shoot 'em up game in Scratch. In this tutorial, I'll be adding power-ups to the game and begin working on a gun upgrading system. If you haven't seen parts 1 through 6 yet, check them out, links are in the description below. Anyways, let's get started. So first off, I'm planning on adding a power-up that occasionally drops from planes once you destroy them. So to make the power-up, I'm going to first create a new sprite, and then quickly draw one. Alright, so I'm done drawing the power-up, and now I'm going to make some of the enemy planes drop the power-up once they're destroyed. So to do that, let's go to the enemy plane sprite. I'm going to start with the one that shoots out bullets. And once the enemy plane is destroyed over here, we can just go to Control, and then create a clone of the power-up. So that's sprite 1. And okay, I'm just going to first name the power-up. So I'll call this power-up. And then back to the enemy plane sprite. Once it's destroyed, we're going to create a clone of the power-up along with the explosion and everything else. However, I don't want all of the enemy planes to drop a power-up once they're destroyed. I only want some of them. So to make it random, I am going to drag an if statement. And then inside of operators, I'm going to drag an equals. And then I'm going to drag a pick random. And I'm going to say if pick random, let's say 1 to 4 is equal to 4, then I am going to create a clone of the power-up. Like this. And like this. Alright, so now every time an enemy plane is destroyed, it's going to choose a random number between 1 and 4, and if that number is equal to 4, then it's going to drop the power-up. And of course, if you want less power-ups to appear, you can make this number larger. For example, pick random like 1 to 10 or 1 to 100. And if you want more power-ups to spawn, you can decrease the number, like 1 to 2 or something like that. And that's actually all we need to do for the enemy planes. Now let's go to the next enemy plane. And I'm just going to duplicate this block. So the if pick random 1 to 4 is equal to 4 and then create clone of power-up. I'm going to drag this inside of the other enemy plane. Okay. And then inside of my other enemy plane. By the way, these are the ones that do a loop and then go straight down. And I'm going to drag this in the same spot, so right after it creates clone of enemy explosion. And that should be fine. So now let's add some code for the power-up. And the power-up code is actually pretty similar to the enemy explosion code. Because when the power-up is spawned, it also goes to the enemy plane that spawned the clone, like the explosion. So we can just go to the enemy explosion sprite, and then copy this script. So I'm going to drag this inside of the power-up sprite. And now we have that same script in the power-up. And I'm going to keep this go to XY, where it goes to the explosion X and explosion Y, because that's the position where the enemy plane clone was destroyed. And we want the power-ups to start at that position. So I'm going to keep that. And then for the size, I'm going to try something like 35%. Okay, that's a bit too small. Let's see. I'll try 50% or maybe 60, 65. Okay, so I think if the power-ups were about this big, that would be fine. So I'm going to change this to set size to 65%. And now, after the power-ups spawn from the destroyed enemy plane, I want them to sort of slowly drop down in a straight line. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go to Control, and then drag a repeat until loop, and I'm going to go to Operators, drag a lesser than operator, and repeat until the Y position of the power-up is less than, let's say, -180. So that's the bottom of the screen. And then inside the loop, I'm going to make the power-up keep going downwards. So I'm going to decrease its Y position by something like, let's say, -4. And then once the power-up hits the bottom of the screen, it's going to disappear. So I'll drag this, delete this clone, and then put it after the repeat until. And then we can delete this stuff. And now the power-up should go to the enemy plane that was destroyed, and then go downwards. So let's just try that out. Let's see if it works. And let's see. Okay, as you can see, only some of the enemy planes that are destroyed drop a power-up, and they fall downwards like that. And they don't seem to be disappearing when they hit the bottom of the screen, so I'll fix that. But as you can see, about a fourth of the enemy planes drop a power-up once destroyed. Like that. Alright, cool. So the power-ups weren't completely disappearing off screen, so I'm going to increase this number a bit. So maybe once the Y position is less than negative 178. Let's try that again now. So once the power-up spawns and goes down, they disappear like that. Alright, cool. And now we have our power-ups that spawn from the enemy planes. And of course, we want the player plane to be able to collect the power-ups. So let's go back to the code. And then let's go to control and then grab an if statement. So while the power-up is falling downwards, that's inside of this repeat until loop, we want to check if it's touching the player. So if touching player plane, then we want the clone to delete itself, because that would mean the player collected the power-up. However, we also want the power-ups to actually do something. And I was thinking of having sort of like a counter that shows how many power-ups you've collected, and then once you've collected a certain number of power-ups, you can upgrade your gun. So to do that, I'm going to go to variables and then create a new variable. I'm going to call this power points, and then I'm going to click OK. And every time the player collects a power-up, I'm going to change the power points by 1. And of course, when the flag is clicked, we also want to set the power points to 0. So I think I'm going to do it inside of the player plane. So once the flag is clicked, let's set the power points to 0. And now that should be fine. So I'm going to show the variable, and then I'm going to try it out. So once the player collects a power-up, as you can see, it disappears and its power points goes up by 1, like that. Alright, cool. And it seems that the original power-up sprite is showing over here, so I'm going to hide it. Let's go to the power-up sprite, and then I'm going to drag a when flag clicked, then hide. Okay, there we go. And now we have sort of a basic power-up system. I'm going to show you once again. So we have power-ups, and then the player can collect them like so. And yeah. So now I'm going to make something that shows how many power points you have, sort of like my cash counter over here. So let's go to the code. So first, to make the power-up counter, I'm going to duplicate the cache number counter. So right-click, duplicate. And with this number counter, I actually want to display two numbers. The first one is going to be how many power points you currently have, and then the second one is going to be how many power points you need to upgrade to your next gun. And I'm planning on having these two numbers separated by a slash. So I'm going to first go to the costumes, and then create a new costume, and then type in the slash. Oops. I'm going to make the fill black. Alright. And now we have our slash. And I'll just name this costume slash. So like that. Alright. Now I'm going to go back to the code. And since I want to show how many power points I have and how many power points I need for the next upgrade, I need two variables. The first one is the power points, which I already have. And the second one is going to be how many power points I need. So let's go to variables. And then I'm going to create a new variable and call this something like power points needed. And then we can click OK. And let's just say for the first gun upgrade, the player is going to need 5 power points. So inside of the player plane sprite, I'm just going to set power points needed to 5. Okay, and then I'm going to drag this under the set power points to 0, and that should be okay. And since I want to show the number of power points that I have, and then a slash, and then the number of power points that I need for the next upgrade, I need to create another variable that combines all of the numbers together. So I'm going to create a variable, and then call this, let's say, PowerPoints display. And then I'm going to click OK. And now for the PowerPoints display, I am going to go to Control and then drag a forever loop. I'm going to drag this after the original sprite creates the clones. I'm going to forever and then go to variables, set the PowerPoints display to the number of PowerPoints I have plus a slash plus the number of PowerPoints that I need. So in the operators tab, there's a useful tool for combining numbers or letters, and that is the join block. The join block. So what I can do is that I can first join the number of PowerPoints that I have with a slash, like that, and then also join that with the number of PowerPoints that I need. So let's say if my PowerPoints were 2 and then I need 5 PowerPoints, this is going to show 2/5. So yeah, now I'm going to drag this inside of the set PowerPoint display, and now that should be fine. And because this might become a sort of long number, I want to increase the number of clones that I have to show the number. So I'm going to change this to something like repeat 10. And by doing that, now my PowerPoint display can show up to 10 numbers. And now that we have that, let's actually show the PowerPoint display in the game. So inside of this when I start as a clone, I'm going to make the clones go to XY. And I think I want this PowerPoint display to be shown on the right side of the screen over here. So instead of minus 222, I might replace that with a plus 222. So digits times 15 plus 222, and then put this back inside of the X. And now this is going to show up on the right side of the screen. And now instead of the cache variable, I'm going to check if the length of the PowerPoint display is less than digits. Then that means that digit does not need to show, so it hides. Else it shows and then switches costume to the letter digits of right click, PowerPoint display. Alright, and now that should be okay. But one thing is that we also have to include the slash. And since the slash isn't a number, we have to go to Control and then drag in if else. And then I'm going to duplicate this, so right click duplicate. And then I'm going to operators and drag an equals. And I'm going to check if the letter digits of PowerPoint display is equal to a slash, which pretty much means that once a certain letter in the PowerPoint display variable is a slash, then of course we want to switch the costume to the slash costume. So let's drag this inside of the else. And then otherwise we just show the numbers. So I'm going to drag this inside of the if else. And I'm going to also drag the show outside of the if else, because no matter what, as long as the digits is less than the length of PowerPoint display, we want to show it. So it's something like that. And now I think we should be fine. But first off, since I'm testing the PowerPoint display, I don't want to show the enemy planes, because otherwise I'd have to dodge them and stuff like that. So I'm going to go to the enemy planes and then quickly disable their spawning. So I'll just drag the block out. All right. And now we can test the display. And okay, so here are our numbers, and they're a bit squished to the right side. So I'm going to quickly fix that by decreasing the X position in the go to X to, let's say, something like 190. Okay, maybe 180. All right, that looks fine. But anyways, as you can see, the PowerPoint display correctly shows the numbers, because the left number is the current number of PowerPoints we have, and then the right number is the number of PowerPoints that we need. So that works. And by the way, I think that slash is a bit too short, so I'm going to make it a bit longer. Okay. I think this should be fine. All right. And now I'm going to quickly test with different values to make sure that this number is working correctly. So I'm going to drag a set PowerPoints and then also a set PowerPoints needed. Alright, so let's say if we have 10 power points and then we need 10. Okay, so I think it's displaying the 10 and the 10. However, the numbers are going to the right side of the screen. And that's a problem because when the numbers become longer, I want them to go towards the left side, not the right side. So to fix this problem, what I can do is go to operators and then grab a minus, and then I'm going to grab a length of PowerPoint display, and I'm going to multiply this by 15. Oops, 15. And then I'm going to drag all of this inside of the minus. Now I'm going to drag this part of the go to X inside the left side of the minus, and then drag this entire thing back inside of the go to X. Alright, and what this does is that as the length of the PowerPoint display variable becomes longer, this entire sprite shifts to the left. However, it shifts to the left the exact same amount as your digit spacing. So my digit spacing is 15, so it shifts to the left by 15. So that pretty much means that the number does not change position at all, but the numbers are just added to the left. And now that should be fine, but I'm going to change the X position. So I want this number to go a bit more towards the right. So I might change this to something like plus 195, plus 200, plus 210, 215, 220. Okay, I think that's fine. And now, if I were to have, let's say, 245 power points, and I need like 500 power points for the next upgrade, then the number should, as you can see, stay in the same place and not go towards the right of the screen. Now let's say I have like 1 power point and then need 5. Then as you can see, it works properly. So yeah, now we have the number counter working. And now I think I sort of want the power up symbol over here so that the player knows what this number actually is. So to do that, I'm just going to go to the power up sprite. And since we aren't using the main sprite, we can actually show it. So show, and then let's go to motion, and then drag this power up sprite, and drag it somewhere over here. So let's make it go to X 72, and then Y negative 48. And I'm going to increase the size a bit, so I'm going to go to looks, and then set size to something like, let's just say 80%. Let's see. Okay, maybe 90%. Alright, I think that's fine. And oops, we have to reposition so over here. Okay, that is X 224 and then Y 117. So 224, 117. Alright, and now we have sort of like a power up icon. And now let's go back to our power up display. Oops, I'm going to rename this by the way. So power up display, or PowerPoint display. So PowerPoint display. Okay. And now I'm going to shift this number to the left a bit. So let's try 200, 195. Okay, I think that's fine. And then I sort of want to shift the power up icon to the left also. So 220. Okay. And then Y position, let's try 120, 119, maybe 118. I'll do 119 also, I guess. And now we have our full PowerPoint display counter. So I'm going to go to variables and then hide all of the 3 variables. And now I'm going to re-drag the blocks inside of the enemy planes. And now try the game. And once the player collects a power-up, the number on the left over here should increase. Alright, as you can see, it does. And now we have our power-up counter. So yeah, let's try it out again. Once the player collects the power-ups. Alright. And of course, nothing happens once we reach 5 power-ups, but I'll work on that later. And I sort of want some text on the top right here that shows what weapon the player currently has. So I think I'm going to quickly add that. So let's create a new sprite. And then I'm going to call this, let's say, player weapon. All right. And right now, the player sort of has like a double shooting weapon. So I'm going to call this, let's see, maybe double shot or twin gun. I'm not sure, but I'll just call this double shot. All right. And then I'm going to center this. And now I'm going to go back to the code. And I'm going to quickly drag a when flag clicked. Then I'm going to show. And then switch its costume to costume 1. And I'm going to make it go to the top right of the screen. So let me try dragging that. All right. Somewhere around here. So that is X position 171 and Y position 154. And I think I want that text a bit bigger. So maybe set size to 120. Okay. I think that's better. So I'm going to move this to the right a bit, or left, sorry. So maybe 160 in the X position, 158. All right, I think that looks fine. I'm gonna drag this set size inside of the when flag clicked, and that should be fine. All right, now we have a description of what weapon the player currently has. All right, cool. And we also have our power-ups. The power-ups occasionally spawn once a plane is destroyed, and once the player collects a power-up, the power-up counter increases. Alright, and yeah. Anyways, that's it for this tutorial. If you enjoyed it, then give it a thumbs up and subscribe too, if you haven't already. In the next video, I'll be adding different weapons that the player can unlock once they reach enough power-up points. Also, I share this project on my Scratch profile, so if you want, you can check it out in the description below. Anyways, that's it for this tutorial. See ya!